Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some champions that are actually good with the new Keystone Omnistone now after the buffs it did receive in this patch. The Unranked to Diamond series will be continuing over on my stream on Twitch as this video goes live as well, guys. So far we're 22-6. We're getting closer to Diamond. We're about halfway there so far. So if you guys are interested in checking out this stream, there is going to be a link down in the description below. So for the new Keystone Omnistone, when it first got released, it was pretty much just a troll keystone. You wouldn't want to run it on any champion, and for a lot of champions it is still a troll keystone. Like, it's not very good on a ton of different champions, but with the changes it has received over the past 2 patches now, it's actually pretty good on a select few champions. So the change it got in patch 9.23, it got a hotfix to where the cooldown on it got reduced for both ranged and melee. So from 8 to 4 seconds for melee down to now 7 to 3, and then for ranged it used to be 12 to 8, it's now 11 to 7. So that's a little buff that did help it out slightly. And the change it got in this patch is what's now making it pretty good on a couple different champions. So Omnistone is now going to be a bit smarter at giving you the right keystone based on the situation. So for example, in last patch you might have got a Dark Harvest when there's no enemies that are low on HP near you, and it would have made that Dark Harvest completely useless. But now in this patch, you're much more likely to only get that Dark Harvest if the enemy is low on HP. So if we jump into taking a look at which champions are best with the Keystone for this patch, we're going to start off by taking a look at a bunch of top laners here, and top lane is definitely the role that does have the most amount of champions that are doing good with the Keystone, and it is mostly dominated by ranged top laners. The first one here is going to be Kennan. So I would say right now Kennan is probably the best Omnistone user out of all the champions in the game for 9.24. The reason being is because when you think about which champions are going to be strong with Omnistone, you got to think about which champions can actually utilize most of the keystones in the game. And for Kennan's sake, he can pretty much use every single keystone. Press the attack can be procced easily in the laning phase, lethal tempo can be used, fleet footwork, conquer, airy, comment. There's just pretty much every single rune Kennan can look to proc in the laning phase and look to take advantage of having a bunch of different keystones that he is rolling through. So into melee matchups, I would definitely be looking to run this on Kennan. In ranged matchups, it's not going to be as good because you're not going to be able to constantly proc your Omnistone Keystone off cooldown. It's going to be great for you in those melee matchups because whenever you get a new Keystone, you're pretty much going to be able to proc it immediately. You're going to wait like 12 seconds, which is the cooldown, get another Keystone, proc that one immediately. So you're really going to be able to take advantage of Omnistone in those melee matchups. For the second top laner on the list, it's going to be Riven. So Riven is one of the few melee champions that's actually performing pretty well with Omnistone in this patch. If you're in a matchup to where you're going to be able to constantly proc this in the laning phase, then because it is on a very short cooldown, or it's on a much shorter cooldown for melee champions than it is for ranged, if you're in that matchup to where you're allowed to bully the enemy top laner and you're just constantly going in and proccing your keystones, you're going to get a lot of use out of this new Omnistone. Now, this isn't to say that Conquer still isn't very good on Riven for this patch. I still think it's probably her #1 keystone, but with Omnistone getting buffed, with Conquer getting nerfed, and with Omnistone actually performing very well in this patch on Riven for the people who are using it, it's definitely something that I would try out on the champion. So for our third top laner on the list, it's going to be Teemo, and I actually think that Teemo might even be a little bit stronger than Kennan with Omnistone in this patch right now, just because there's so much variance in which runes Teemo players are running in this patch, and there's so many different runes or keystones that can do great on Teemo. For example, 12% of players are running Press the Attack right now. You got 8% running Electrocute, 18% running Dark Harvest, 27% running Airy, 23% running Grasp. So there's just not a single keystone in this patch that's dominating for Teemo players, or there's not one keystone that every single Teemo player is running, and I think because of that, it just makes Omnistone an even better choice on him. So next up here is going to be Kale, and with the removal of Kleptomancy, Kale players are kind of just still figuring out what is the best keystone on her now for 9.24. There's so much variance as to which rune Kale players are running right now. Pretty much every single one of the precision keystones are being run on Kale right now with a pretty high pick rate. You got like 20% of players going Conquer, 10% Lethal Tempo, 40% going Fleet Footwork. That is the one that most Kale players are running, and then you got like 20% running Press the Attack. So she does have the ability to use almost every single keystone in the game. A lot of keystones are really good on Kale, so that's the reason as to why Omnistone can be a pretty good choice for her. So next up for Gnar, I think Omnistone is really good on him because Gnar's a champion that can also use a lot of different keystones, and he's never really had that #1 keystone that's best on him. Fleet Footwork right now is the one that most Gnar players are running, but it's only got a 30% pick rate, so that means there's a lot of other runes that are still being played on him. 25% are running Conquer, 14 are running Press the Attack, 20% are running Grass. So with this new smart logic on the Omnistone, if you're able to get the best keystone out of those couple, depending on the situation, I think it can make Omnistone really good on Gnar. Now for Jace, similar to Riven, he still does very well with Conquer in 9.24, and I would say that for most scenarios, Conquer is still going to be what you'd look to run on Jace for this patch, but he is also another champion that can use almost every keystone in the game really well, especially in those melee matchups, so it's definitely something worthwhile trying out on Jace as well for this patch. So another champ worthwhile trying it out on for this patch is Quinn. Quinn's another champion kind of similar to Gnar that just doesn't really have a keystone that's kind of stuck with her over time. Right now in this patch, most players are preferring Press the Attack at around 60%, but you also have some players running the Fleet Footwork. You got 10% of players running Conquer, 10% running Electrocute, Phase Rush at 5%. Even the Aftershock is pretty decent on Quinn. In previous metas, we've seen some Korean Quinn players run the Aftershock and do pretty well with that. So another champion here that you can try this out on, and because she can utilize a lot of different runes, it can be a great option for her. Now surprisingly, Ornn's actually performing very well with Omnistone so far in this patch. I would say that if you're in a more difficult matchup, just stick to the Grasp or the Aftershock, but if you're in an easy matchup, if you know you can win it, then going something like the Omnistone and getting an Electrocute or a Dark Harvest to help yourself with your all-ins, help you snowball harder in the laning phase. Even getting an Airy or a Comet can be pretty good. Add to your Q poke in the laning phase. Getting the Conquer there isn't even all that bad either, because you can stack that up pretty quickly with all of your abilities. So if we move on to taking a look at the one jungle champion that does pretty well with Omnistone right now, it is Udyr. Now for the majority of junglers, I just don't think Omnistone's ever really going to be great on them, because for most jungle champions, I just feel like they have that #1 keystone that's really good on them and that they wouldn't want to pass up on. For example, something like the Olaf, really good with Conquer. You don't really want anything else than that. For somebody like the Elise or the Evelynn, Electrocute is just going to help you way more than something like getting a lethal tempo or a Fleet Footwork if you're looking to one-shot somebody or you're looking to skirmish in the early game. So for Udyr though, because he is a champion that in the past and even right now can use almost every single keystone in the game, and there's not really one keystone that's super good on the champion, I do think that is why Omnistone can work pretty well for him. For a few mid lane champions that can do well with the keystone, first one here is Silas. Now I'd probably just be staying away from Silas entirely for 9.24 because he's not in a very good spot, but if you do decide to play him, might as well try out the Omnistone on him. He is a champion that can use a bunch of different keystones. Conquer is the best on him right now, but a lot of people are still going Electrocute. You can do pretty well with the Aftershock, Comet, so there's a bunch of different options, which does make it a pretty viable choice on Silas. So for Twisted Fate, it is an option on him if you are going for AD Twisted Fate. If you're going for AP Twisted Fate, you're not going to be auto-attacking a ton, so I would just run something like the Comet or the Electrocute. But if you're going for that AD Twisted Fate, you're going to be able to take advantage of something like the Press the Attack, the Lethal Tempo, the Fleet Footwork. So AD Twisted Fate builds, look to try out Omnistone for 9.24. Now down to the bot lane for two different picks. First up for Ezreal, if you do decide to play him for 9.24, which I don't know why you would considering how bad of a spot he's in right now, Omnistone's actually a pretty good option. With the buffs it got in this patch and with the Conquer nerfs, it makes it so that it is a much more viable option for 9.24. And then one other AD carry that can do pretty good with Omnistone is Misfortune. With Kleptomancy getting removed in the preseason, a lot of MF players are still trying to figure out what's the best keystone on her right now. Most players are running Press the Attack, 60% of players are running that, but you still got a lot of players running the Conquer, you got some players running Dark Harvest, you got some running the Comet and the Ares, so you can utilize almost every keystone on Misfortune. Most other AD carries wouldn't really want to run Omnistone because, for example, if you get something like the Comet on a Twitch in the laning phase, like if you're in a harder matchup, you're not really going to be able to proc that Comet super consistently, but with someone like Misfortune, with your E being able to just constantly use that in the laning phase whenever it's up, proc something like the Aerie or the Comet immediately, it can be a pretty consistent keystone for Misfortune. So that is going to be all for the video, guys. Those are a bunch of different champions for 9.24 that can now actually do pretty good with the new Omnistone Keystone. So if you haven't tried it out on any of these champions, then I would definitely recommend it. With that being said though, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.